The emergency lights painted everything red inside the Grand Assembly Chamber. Ambassador Tilrus watched 7 holographic displays flicker with the same terrible news. 3 more colonies had gone silent in the past rotation. The Ravager swarms were getting closer to the core worlds of the Halcyon Federation. Tilrus belonged to a species that prided itself on logic and reason. His kind had abandoned emotional thinking thousands of cycles ago, choosing instead the clarity of pure calculation. Around him, representatives from 6 other Federation species sat in perfect silence. They all knew what the numbers meant. At current rates, the Federation would cease to exist within 40 rotations. High Counselor Bren spoke without raising his voice. Age had made him slower but sharper in his thinking. Defense Coordinator Phalanx, present your assessment. Phalanx activated a 3-dimensional map showing red masses spreading across blue territory like infection. Our weapons cannot adapt fast enough. The swarms learn from every engagement. What destroys them today fails tomorrow. Our shields that held for years now collapse in hours. Diplomatically, they do not respond to any communication. They simply consume and move forward. Casualties? Bren asked. 42 million civilians lost. Military losses exceed 800,000. These numbers will increase exponentially. Tilrus felt something he had been trained to ignore. His people called it vestigial fear response, a leftover from their primitive past. He called it realism. They were losing badly. What options remain? Bren's question hung in the still air. Phalanx hesitated, which was unusual for someone so direct. One possibility exists. Scan data from Exploration Probe 447 identified a species on a remote world. Initial readings suggest they survived extreme environmental conditions. Gravity 1.3 times our standard. Temperature fluctuations that would kill most of us. Atmospheric composition indicating frequent natural disasters. Radiation levels from their sun that should have prevented complex life. A death world, someone whispered. Correct. The species there should theoretically be more resilient than our population. They might serve as mercenaries or frontline forces. Bren considered this information with typical Federation efficiency. What is their technological level? Primitive by our standards. They have achieved basic faster-than-light capability within the last 100 cycles. Chemical propulsion, early energy weapons, kinetic defenses. Then why would they help us? Phalanx displayed more data. They possess resources we can offer in trade, technology transfers, territory rights, standard mercenary negotiations. Tilrus spoke for the first time. What is this species called? They identify themselves as humans. Their world is called Earth. The Council voted with logical speed. Send a distress beacon. Offer generous terms. Expect mercenaries who would fight for payment and territory. It was a simple transaction between advanced civilization and primitive warriors. The Federation had made such deals before with other species. The message was composed with careful precision. It detailed the threat, specified the payment, and provided coordinates. Then it was launched toward Earth on the fastest transmission possible. 3 days passed. Tilrus was reviewing casualty reports when the alert came. A fleet had emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Federation space. Impossibly fast travel for such supposedly primitive technology. The vessels were crewed by Federation standards, built with excessive armor and redundant systems. Everything about them suggested species that expected to take damage and keep functioning. The communication channel opened. This is Admiral Christine Acaffer of the United Earth Defense Coalition. We received your distress call. Our medical ships, supply vessels, and defense forces are ready to render assistance. Please transmit coordinates of civilian populations requiring evacuation and defensive positions needing reinforcement. Tilrus waited for the rest. The negotiation, the demands, the price. Nothing came. He opened a channel. Admiral Akafor, we are prepared to discuss terms of your mercenary contract, territory rights, technology transfers, resource extraction permissions. I think there's been a misunderstanding, Ambassador. The human's voice carried something Tilris had not heard in centuries: warmth. We're not here to negotiate payment. You sent a distress call. People need help. That's enough. You expect no compensation. We expect to do whatever we can to protect your civilians and help push back this threat. Payment isn't part of that equation. Tilris checked the translation matrix 3 times. It was functioning perfectly. These humans were actually offering military assistance, medical support, and logistical aid without demanding anything in return. No Federation species would do this. No known species in the galaxy operated this way. Admiral, this is not logical. You risk your forces for beings you have never met. You offer resources without guarantee of return. This violates basic principles of survival and resource management. A different sound came through the channel. Laughter, gentle but genuine. Ambassador, if we only helped people when it was logical or profitable, we wouldn't really be helping. We'd just be doing business. Your people are in danger. You asked for help. We're here. Let's focus on keeping everyone safe and figure out the rest later. Behind Tilris, Counselor Bren had gone completely still. Phalanx was running scans on the human vessels as if expecting deception or hidden weapons. How many ships did you bring? Tilris asked. This is our first response fleet. 42 vessels carrying medical personnel, engineers, food supplies, temporary shelter units, and defense forces. Our second fleet will arrive within 36 hours with additional support. We've also sent a request to our science coalition. They want to study these Ravager swarms and find a more permanent solution. 42 ships had arrived in days. More were coming, all without a signed contract or guarantee of profit. Admiral Akafor, I must ask directly, what does your species gain from this? The human paused before answering. When she spoke, her words would change everything Tilris thought he understood about the galaxy. Ambassador, we come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. Storms, earthquakes, diseases, predators. We survived because we learned to help each other. We learned that the strongest human isn't the one who can fight alone, but the one who protects others. You have civilians who are scared. You have defenders who are exhausted. You have a threat that seems unstoppable. What we gain is the chance to stand with you and prove that nothing is unstoppable when people work together. That's not profit, that's just being decent. Tilris realized his hands were shaking, an emotional response he thought his species had evolved beyond. Around him, the Grand Assembly sat in stunned silence. These humans had crossed vast distances not for territory or technology. They had come simply because someone needed help. They had brought hope to a Federation that had forgotten what hope felt like. Welcome to Federation space, Admiral, Tilris finally said. Where do we start? 3 human ships docked at Medical Station Praxis 7 without waiting for formal clearance. Dr. Yuki Tanaka stepped through the airlock carrying equipment that looked surprisingly primitive to the Federation physicians watching her arrival. The chief medical officer, a tall being named Rennick, approached with visible confusion. Dr. Tanaka, we were told your species would send medical support. This equipment appears to be from your early industrial period. Yuki smiled while unpacking boxes. These are field surgical kits designed for extreme conditions. Sometimes the simplest tools work best when everything else fails. Your medical technology is impressive, but can it function if power fails or systems are damaged? Rennick had no answer. Federation medicine relied on advanced scanners and automated systems. The idea of working without them was unthinkable. Where are your wounded? Yuki asked. In isolation, Wing 3, but they are not your responsibility yet. We have not finalized any medical cooperation protocols. Yuki was already walking toward the isolation wing. People are hurt. Protocols can wait. Two more humans followed her, carrying medical supplies. Rennick hurried after them, uncertain whether to stop this breach of procedure or simply observe. The isolation wing held 37 patients. All had survived Ravager attacks on border colonies. Their injuries ranged from severe radiation exposure to physical trauma from collapsed structures. Federation medicine had stabilized them, but could do little else. The treatments required resources the Federation was saving for military personnel. Yuki moved from bed to bed, examining each patient with gentle efficiency. She spoke to them even though most could not understand her language. Her hands checked vital signs while her voice remained calm and reassuring. "This one has internal bleeding," she said, pointing to a young Federation citizen whose skin had turned an unhealthy shade. "Why hasn't this been treated?" "Resources are limited," Rennick explained. "We must prioritize those with the highest survival probability and military value." Yuki turned to face him. Her expression was not angry but deeply sad. "Every life has value. This child is not a resource calculation. They're someone's family." She began working immediately, using her primitive tools with surprising skill. The other human medics spread throughout the ward, treating patients the Federation had classified as low priority. Rennick watched in amazement as Yuki stopped the internal bleeding using techniques he had only seen in historical medical texts. Simple pressure, basic suturing, fundamental chemistry, things that worked regardless of technology level. "You learned this expecting to work in disaster conditions," he realized. "We learned this because disasters happen," Yuki replied without stopping her work. "On Earth, we don't have the luxury of perfect conditions. Earthquakes destroy hospitals, floods cut off power, wars damage infrastructure, so we learn to save lives with whatever we have available." Across the station, similar scenes were unfolding. Human engineers were showing Federation technicians how to repair damaged systems using improvised parts. Human soldiers were teaching defensive tactics that did not rely on energy shields. Human supply officers were organizing food distribution with an efficiency that surprised everyone. Captain Bennett found himself in a training facility facing 24 Federation security officers. They had requested combat instruction, expecting advanced weapons training. Instead, Bennett was teaching them hand-to-hand fighting. "Your species is more fragile than mine," one officer named Qres observed. "Why would we learn physical combat when we have energy weapons?" Bennett demonstrated by having a volunteer try to shoot him with a training weapon. He closed the distance before they could fire, disabled them gently, and helped them back to their feet. Because weapons fail, shields malfunction. Sometimes the enemy gets too close and you have nothing but yourself. Your body is a weapon that never runs out of ammunition. It never needs recharging. You just need to know how to use it. The Federation officers practiced the movement slowly. Their bodies were not built for this kind of combat. They tired quickly and struggled with the physical demands. Bennett adjusted his teaching immediately. "Different strengths for different bodies. You're faster than us, more flexible. We'll adapt the techniques to match what you can actually do, not force you to fight like humans." This concept surprised them. Fighting styles that adapted to individual capability rather than rigid doctrine. Tactics that acknowledged weakness and worked around it instead of pretending it did not exist. Qres attempted a modified throw Bennett had shown her. It worked, sort of. "Why do you care if we learn this? If we fail in combat, that is fewer beings you must protect." Bennett looked genuinely confused by the question. "You're not burdens to protect. Your partners we're fighting alongside. Your survival increases our chances. Your skills complement ours. We're stronger together." Meanwhile, Admiral Okafor sat in a conference room with High Counselor Bren and the Federation Military Command. Holographic displays showed the current strategic situation. It was not good. The swarms have adapted to our defensive patterns, Defense Coordinator Phalix explained. Every strategy we employ becomes ineffective within days. They learn faster than we can innovate. HFY studied the data with focused attention. They're not just learning your tactics, they're learning your thinking. You fight logically. You optimize for efficiency. You calculate the most probable response and execute it. This is correct. It is the superior method. Against an enemy that thinks like you do, maybe, but it makes you predictable. HFY pulled up Earth's military history. On our world, we learned that the most effective strategy is often the unexpected one, not because it's efficient, but because it's surprising. She displayed several human victories achieved through what the Federation would consider irrational tactics, retreating to draw enemies into traps, sacrificing strategic positions to save civilians, defending locations with no tactical value simply because abandoning them would damage morale. This is illogical, Phalix stated. These decisions reduce overall efficiency. They win battles, HFY countered. Efficiency is useful, but sometimes courage and unpredictability matter more. The swarms expect you to act logically. Let's show them something they can't calculate. Bren had remained silent throughout the discussion. Finally, he spoke. Admiral, your species has been here for less than one rotation. You have broken our protocols, questioned our methods, and disrupted our systems. HFY tensed, preparing for dismissal. And you have accomplished more in that time than we have in the last 100 rotations. Bren actually smiled, an expression his species rarely used. Please, continue disrupting everything. We clearly need it. Back in the medical wing, Yuki finished treating her 37th patient. All of them were stable now. All of them would survive. Rennick approached her quietly. We had classified most of these individuals as terminal. Expected survival rate was 12%. You have achieved 100% stability. Because we treated them like people instead of statistics, Yuki said simply. Every patient matters. Every life is worth fighting for. This is not efficient use of resources. Yuki packed her equipment slowly. Maybe not, but it's the right thing to do, and sometimes doing the right thing is more important than doing the efficient thing. Rennick looked at his patients. For the first time in his long career, he wondered if his species had optimized away something essential, something these humans still possessed, something that made them more than just logical beings surviving in an uncaring universe. They had optimized away their humanity, and these humans were showing them what they had lost. The warning came during what Federation citizens called rest period. 40,000 people lived on Green Reach, an agricultural colony that grew food for 3 nearby systems. The Ravager swarms had just entered the outer detection grid, moving faster than predicted. Evacuation would take 6 hours minimum. The swarms would arrive in 4. Captain Bennett stood in the colony's command center with Administrator Veneth, an elderly being whose hands shook as she looked at the evacuation numbers. We cannot move everyone in time. We must select who evacuates first based on survival value to the Federation. No, Bennett's voice was firm but not harsh. We move everyone. No one gets left behind. That is mathematically impossible. Then we change the math. Bennett opened a channel to Admiral HFY. Ma'am, we need every transport we have. I'm also requesting permission to deploy ground forces in aggressive defense pattern. HFY understood immediately. You'll buy them time. Yes, ma'am, however long it takes. Approved. All human vessels are diverting to Green Reach. We'll get those people out, Captain. Tilrus had requested to observe human military operations. Now he stood in an armored command vehicle as Bennett's Marines prepared defensive positions. What he saw made no logical sense. The humans were building fortifications in locations that had no strategic value. They were placing their strongest forces not where they could inflict maximum damage, but where they could protect the evacuation routes. They were preparing to fight a battle designed not to win, but to delay. "Captain Bennett, your positioning is incorrect," Tilrus observed. "You could achieve superior tactical advantage by holding the high ground to the north." Bennett was helping two Marines set up a heavy weapon. He barely looked up. "The high ground gives us better firing position, but it's farther from the civilian shelters. If breakthrough occurs, we couldn't reach the people in time. This position is worse for us but better for them. You are prioritizing civilian safety over your own survival." "Yes, sir, that's the job." Tilrus watched as every human unit moved into position with the same thinking, not where they could be safest, but where they could protect others most effectively. It defied every military principle he understood. The Ravagers arrived like a living storm, millions of creatures moving with coordinated purpose, their bodies adapted from species they had consumed. They had wings, claws, armor, and weapons all grown from biological matter. The Federation defenders opened fire with energy weapons. The first wave of Ravagers fell. The second wave had already adapted, their bodies absorbing the energy harmlessly. "Weapons ineffective," a Federation officer reported with defeated certainty. "Switch to kinetic rounds," Bennett ordered. "Old-fashioned bullets, they can't adapt to physics." The human weapons roared. Unlike the silent energy weapons, human firearms made tremendous noise. Each shot was an explosion of chemistry and metal. The Ravagers fell, unable to quickly adapt to this primitive technology. But there were too many. For every 100 that fell, 1,000 more came forward. Bennett's Marines held the line anyway. Tilrus witnessed something he had never seen. Humans taking injuries that would kill most species and continuing to fight. A corporal named Diaz had 3 broken ribs and kept carrying ammunition to her squadmates. A sergeant with a severely damaged arm used it anyway because the alternative was letting his position fail. They did not fight with rage or hatred. They fought with grim determination and something else, something that looked like love. "First transport away," the evacuation coordinator reported. 5,000 civilians aboard. 35,000 to go, Bennett responded. "We hold." A Ravager breakthrough occurred on the eastern flank. A small group of creatures made it past the defensive line and headed straight for the civilian shelters. Bennett saw it happen. He also saw a young Federation child, no more than 6 cycles old, frozen in fear in the middle of the evacuation path. He ran. Tilrus watched the human captain sprint across open ground while Ravagers closed in. Bennett reached the child, scooped them up, and turned to run back. A Ravager caught him across the back with claws that could tear through armor. Bennett stumbled but did not fall. He kept running with the child held protectively against his chest, made it to the shelter, handed the child to their parent, then collapsed. Medics reached him within seconds. The wound was severe. The Federation medics started to move him to the medical transport. "No," Bennett gasped. "The civilians first, I can wait." "You will die if we wait." "Then I die. Get the people out first." The medic stared at him, comprehension dawning. This human was serious. He would rather die than take a spot meant for a civilian who was not even his species. Dr. Tanaka arrived, having heard the medical emergency call. She took one look at Bennett's wound and began working immediately. "You're not dying today, Captain, but stop being so damn noble. We can treat you and evacuate civilians. We're capable of both." More transports departed. The human defensive line held despite mounting casualties. They fought with weapons that should have been obsolete, using tactics that seemed reckless, protecting people they had met days ago. A Marine named Rodriguez was cornered by 5 Ravagers. She kept firing until her weapon was empty, then drew a knife. A simple metal blade. She managed to wound 2 of them before reinforcements arrived. "Why do they fight so hard?" Venith asked Tilris. "They lose nothing if this colony falls. These are not their people." Tilris was beginning to understand something profound. To humans, all people are their people. They do not categorize by species or value. They see beings who need help and they provide it. It is not logical. It is not efficient. It is simply who they are. The final transport lifted off 6 hours after the battle began. Every single civilian was aboard. 40,000 people saved. The human forces executed a fighting retreat, covering each other as they fell back to their own vessels. They had suffered heavy casualties. 30% of the ground forces were wounded. 5% were dead. But the evacuation was complete. As the last human transport departed, Admiral Akafer transmitted to the colony. "Green Reach, this is Akafer. All civilians are safe. Your colony is still intact. We'll help you rebuild the defenses stronger. This is your home. We made sure you still have it." Tilris stood among the refugees, watching human medics treat both human and Federation wounded with equal care. He saw Bennett, barely conscious, refusing painkillers until he confirmed every civilian was accounted for. He saw Dr. Tanaka working on a patient for 3 hours straight to save a life that any Federation doctor would have classified as unsalvageable. He saw humans who had every reason to leave, instead choosing to stay and fight for strangers. The Federation had called for mercenaries and received guardians. They had offered payment and been given something that could not be bought. They had expected warriors and found something much more dangerous to their understanding of the universe. They had found beings who cared. The Grand Assembly had split into 3 factions overnight. Tilris sat in his quarters reviewing reports, trying to understand how his people could witness the same events and reach such different conclusions. The conservative faction had analyzed human history. They found records of countless wars on Earth, conflicts over resources, territory, belief systems, and power. Their conclusion was simple and terrifying. Humans were apex predators who had turned on each other when no other threats remained. Eventually, they would turn on the Federation too. The progressive faction saw something else in the same data. Yes, humans fought each other, but they also consistently helped former enemies. Nations that had been at war later became allies. Soldiers who had fought each other worked together in peace. The humans had a capacity for both violence and reconciliation that seemed unique. The military faction trusted nobody. They believed the Ravagers were the obvious threat, but humans were the unknown danger. Better to use human assistance now and prepare for betrayal later. Only Tilris and a few others had a fourth perspective. They had fought alongside humans. They had seen what humans did when no one was watching and there was no strategic advantage to gain. Dr. Tanaka found Tilris in the observation deck. She carried 2 containers of liquid. "I brought tea. Yuki's special blend. Helps with stress." Tilris accepted the container hesitantly. Federation citizens rarely consumed anything for pleasure rather than nutrition. "Thank you, Doctor." They stood in silence watching the stars. Finally, Tanaka spoke. "You're worried about something more than the Ravagers." "My people are afraid of yours." "I know, we've seen the reports. Some of your leaders think we're going to betray you." "You do not seem concerned by this assessment." Tanaka sipped her tea slowly. "Fear is logical when you don't understand someone. We're different from you in fundamental ways. That's scary. But fear becomes a problem when it prevents understanding. What if understanding reveals we should be afraid? Then at least you'll know the truth instead of imagining worst-case scenarios." Tanaka pulled up a data pad showing human history. "Let me tell you about World War II, humanity's largest conflict. Millions died. Cities were destroyed. Terrible weapons were created. The violence was unimaginable. Tilris had read these reports. They were part of why the conservatives feared humans. But after the war ended, Tanaka continued, something interesting happened. The nations that fought each other became partners. America helped rebuild Japan and Germany. Former enemies worked together to prevent future wars. We created international laws. We established aid organizations. We learned. You learned war was inefficient. No, we learned that enemies today don't have to be enemies forever. We learned that helping others, even those who hurt you, creates a better future than revenge. Tanaka smiled. We're not perfect. We still have conflicts. We still make mistakes, but we try to be better than we were. A message interrupted them. Commander Willis, a human tactical officer, had requested Tilris's presence in the research laboratory. Something about the Ravager specimen they had captured. The laboratory was crowded. Human and Federation scientists worked side by side, studying the captured Ravager with intense focus. The creature was unconscious but alive, kept sedated for everyone's safety. Willis gestured to a holographic display. We've made a breakthrough. The Ravagers aren't just mindless destroyers. A Federation biologist named Pren added details. Their neural structure suggests high intelligence. They have language centers, memory formation, and emotional processing, all the markers of a sophisticated species. Then why do they destroy everything they encounter? Tilris asked. Dr. Tanaka brought up genetic analysis. Because they're starving, look at these markers: extreme metabolic stress, cellular degradation from lack of nutrients. They're not attacking out of aggression. They're attacking out of desperation. The room fell silent as the implications settled in. Willis continued the explanation. We've reconstructed their linguistic patterns from the data. It's complex, but we managed to translate some fragments from their communications. They call themselves the Wanderers. They're refugees. More data appeared. Historical astronomical records showing a region of space that had been consumed by a stellar phenomenon. Multiple suns going supernova in a chain reaction. Dozens of habitable worlds rendered lifeless. The Ravagers came from those systems, Pren said quietly. They lost everything: their homes, their civilization, most of their population. The survivors fled and found themselves in a galaxy that only saw them as monsters. Tilris felt something he had thought his species had evolved beyond: shame. The Federation had fought the Ravagers for cycles without ever trying to communicate, without ever asking why they were attacking. They had seen a threat and responded with force. We need to establish communication, Dr. Tanaka said. If they're intelligent and desperate, we might be able to help them instead of fighting them. The Council will never approve this, Tilris said. Many already want to escalate military response. Then we don't ask permission. Willis looked at the assembled scientists. We're all adults here. We can make our own choices. If the Council wants to court-martial me later, fine. But we're not going to throw away a chance at peace because of bureaucracy. The human had just suggested mutiny, disobeying direct orders from leadership. It should have been unthinkable. Instead, Tilris found himself agreeing. I will assist. My security clearance can access the communication systems we need. You'll be violating Council orders, Pren warned. Yes, and doing what is right. Sometimes those are not the same thing. Tilris looked at the sedated Ravager. If there is a chance for peace, we must try. That is what humans would do. Over the next rotation, the team worked in secret. They studied Ravager communication patterns. They attempted basic translations. They prepared a message of peaceful intent. Meanwhile, the hardline factions in both the Federation and among the Ravagers were preparing for escalation. Neither side wanted peace. Both saw only enemies that needed to be eliminated. The team knew their window was closing. If fighting resumed before communication was established, the chance for peace would die. Dr. Tanaka looked at the message they had prepared. simple words in the Ravager language. "We understand. We want to help. Please talk with us." "Do you really think they'll respond?" Pren asked. "I think everyone deserves a chance to be heard," Tanaka replied. "Even those who hurt us, especially those who hurt us, because understanding why they hurt us might be the only way to stop the hurting." They transmitted the message toward the nearest Ravager fleet. Then they waited. Hours passed in tense silence. The team took turns monitoring communication channels, hopping for any response. The Federation Council had noticed unusual transmissions. Questions were being asked. Tilrus knew he would face consequences soon. Then the communication system activated. The message was crude, translated through imperfect understanding of language, but the meaning was clear enough. "You say help, all others say die. Why different?" Dr. Tanaka responded personally. "Because you are not monsters, you are survivors. We were wrong to fight without talking first. Please, let us try to fix this." Another long silence. "What you want?" "To meet, to talk, to understand, to help if we can." The response took even longer this time. The team imagined debates happening on the Ravager side, factions arguing about whether to trust this obvious trap. Finally, one ship, one meeting if Trick all die. Willis looked at his colleagues. "Well, who wants to possibly get killed trying to make peace with species that have been trying to eat us?" Every hand in the room went up. Human, Federation, didn't matter. They all volunteered. Because sometimes the right thing to do is also the terrifying thing. And doing it anyway is what separates those who care from those who merely survive. The diplomatic vessel looked fragile against the backdrop of space. One small human ship approaching a Ravager fleet that could destroy it in seconds. Inside, Dr. Tanaka reviewed her notes one final time while Tilrus tried to control his fear response. "You did not have to come," Tanaka said gently. "This is a human initiative. We would not have judged you for staying safe." "If I stay safe while you risk everything, what does that say about my character?" Tilrus looked out the viewport at the massive Ravager ships. "Besides, someone needs to witness this. If it works, the Federation must know. If it fails, they must know that too." Commander Willis piloted the ship personally. No autopilot, no remote systems, just human hands and judgment. Admiral Akafer commanded a support fleet hanging back at safe distance. If this went wrong, she would extract any survivors, assuming there were any. The Ravager fleet was unlike anything Tilrus had seen. Their ships were not built. They were grown. Organic matter shaped by biological engineering into vessels that could cross space. Every surface pulsed with life. It was beautiful and terrifying simultaneously. A communication came through. The translation was better now after days of work. "Stop there. Send one small craft, 3 beings only." Tanaka, Tilrus, and Willis transferred to a shuttle, 3 people in a tiny vessel approaching an armada. The math was laughable. They docked with what they assumed was the flagship. The airlock opened to reveal a chamber that had been hastily modified for atmosphere compatibility. At the far end stood a single Ravager. Tilrus had seen Ravagers in combat. He had watched them tear through defenses and consume everything in their path, but he had never looked one in the eye. The creature was massive, 4 meters tall with multiple limbs adapted for different purposes. Its body showed signs of genetic incorporation from dozens of species, but its eyes held intelligence, pain, exhaustion. "I am Scarth," it said through the translation device. "I speak for the Wanderers. You are the first to offer talk instead of death." Dr. Tanaka stepped forward slowly, hands visible and empty. "I am Yuki Tanaka. This is Tilrus and Commander Willis. We came to understand." "Understand what? How to kill us better." "Understand why you're doing this, why you attack, what you need." Scarth made a sound that the translator struggled with. Eventually, it settled on labeling it as bitter laughter. We need what you cannot give. We need home. We need food. We need the lives we lost. Tilris accessed his data pad carefully. Your species came from the Cascade region. We have records of the stellar event that destroyed those systems. I am sorry for your loss. Sorry does not feed my people. Sorry does not give children safe place to grow. Sorry is sound without meaning. Willis spoke for the first time. You're right, words don't fix anything, but actions can. What if we could help? Help how? Give us your worlds, feed us your people. No, Tanaka pulled up star charts. There are unclaimed systems in several sectors, worlds that are habitable but too remote for the Federation to colonize. What if we helped you settle there, provided technology to grow food sustainably, gave you a chance to rebuild without fighting? Scarth stared at the charts. This is trick, poison gift, you lead us to trap. It's not a trick, Willis said. Look, I get it. You've been attacked by everyone you've met. Why would you trust us? But consider this. If we wanted to kill you, we could have hit you with everything we have when your guard is down. Instead, 3 of us are standing here, completely at your mercy, offering help. Why, what you gain? Tanaka's voice was soft but firm. We gain neighbors instead of enemies. We gain the satisfaction of knowing we helped beings in desperate need. We gain a galaxy where cooperation is possible. Is that so hard to believe? Yes, in my long life I have seen only cruelty from others. You steal from each other. You fight over empty rocks in space. You value territory over life. Why would you be different? Tilris spoke up. Because humans are different. My species thought we were advanced. We thought we understood the galaxy. Then humans arrived and showed us we understood nothing about what truly matters. He pulled up the footage from Green Reach, showed Scarth the human soldiers fighting to protect people they had just met, showed Bennett running into danger to save a child, showed Tanaka working for hours to save one life that her own logic said was not worth the resources. They fight for others, Tilris explained. They sacrifice for strangers. They truly believe that every life has value. It makes no logical sense. It defies efficient resource allocation. But it works. It creates something stronger than logic alone can build. Scarth watched the footage in silence. When it finished, the massive creature seemed somehow smaller. What you show, we used to be, before the hunger, before the running. We had honor once. We valued all life. Then we lost everything and became what we needed to be to survive. You can be that again, Tanaka said. You don't have to be defined by your worst moments. Every species has the capacity for both destruction and creation. You've had to destroy to survive. Let us help you create instead. Outside the ship, sensors detected multiple vessels approaching, both Federation and Ravager forces. The hardline factions on both sides had learned about the meeting. They were coming to stop it. We are out of time, Scarth said. My people split between those who want peace and those who say fight is only way. Your people same, yes. Yes, Willis confirmed. We've got extremists on both sides who want this meeting to fail. Then we must choose quickly. I believe you. I see truth in your eyes and your actions, but my belief alone is not enough. I cannot speak for all wanderers. Admiral Akefer's voice came through on emergency channel. Tanaka, we have incoming hostiles, both sides. You need to evacuate now. Instead of running, Tanaka looked at Scarth directly. If we leave now, the peace dies. If we stay, we both become targets. What if we stand together? Show both sides that cooperation is possible. They will kill us all. Maybe, but we'll die proving something important. That enemies can become allies. That fear doesn't have to control us. That peace is worth the risk. Willis activated the ship's communication system. Admiral, we're staying. We're going to broadcast what's happening here. Let everyone see what's at stake. Tilris felt his hands shaking again. He had violated orders, committed what amounted to treason, and now he was about to die for it. but he activated his own recording systems anyway, documenting for the historical record. Whatever happens here, the Federation will know the truth. Scarth extended a massive claw hand toward Tanaka. She took it without hesitation. "We stand together," the Ravager said. "We show them different path." The hostile fleets arrived simultaneously, weapons charging. The weapons fire came from both sides simultaneously. Federation hardliners and Ravager extremists, united in their belief that peace was impossible, opened fire on the diplomatic vessel. Then something unexpected happened. Admiral Akafer's fleet moved between the attackers and the diplomatic ship. Human vessels formed a protective barrier, taking hits meant for both the diplomats and Scarth's vessel. Inside the diplomatic ship, Tanaka watched in horror as human crews absorbed damage to protect the very beings they had been fighting weeks ago. "Christine, what are you doing?" Akafer's response came through clearly. "My job, protecting people who are trying to do the right thing." On the Ravager side, Scarth transmitted frantically to the moderate faction. Several Ravager ships moved to shield the diplomatic vessel from their own extremists. The galaxy witnessed something unprecedented. Two species who had been at war now defending each other. Captain Bennett, still recovering from his injuries at Green Reach, commanded one of the defensive vessels. He broadcast on all channels. "This is Captain Bennett to all forces. We came here to help people in need. That hasn't changed. Whether you're Federation, Ravager, or anything else, if you want peace, we'll protect you. If you want war, you'll have to go through us first." The Federation extremist commander responded with contempt. "You defend monsters, Captain. They have killed millions." "And we've learned why," Bennett replied. "They're not monsters, they're refugees, desperate people who did terrible things to survive. We can either keep killing each other or we can try something new. I choose new." A Ravager extremist ship fired directly at Bennett's vessel. The shot penetrated shields, causing severe damage. Bennett's crew stabilized the ship, but they were heavily wounded. Instead of returning fire, Bennett transmitted to the Ravager who shot him. "I know you're scared. I know you think this is a trap, but look around. We're protecting you and your people even while you shoot at us. Does that seem like a trap? Does that seem like an enemy?" Tilris watched the battle unfold from the diplomatic vessel. He saw human ships taking damage from both sides while refusing to fire back. He saw Ravager moderates doing the same, protecting the humans who protected them. "This is insane," he whispered. "They are dying to protect a peace that might not even work." "That's faith," Dr. Tanaka said. "Believing in something enough to sacrifice for it, even when you're not sure it will succeed." Scarth was transmitting to all Ravager forces. "Look what they do. They fight to protect us while we attack them. When did we become beings who repay mercy with violence? When did we forget honor?" The broadcasts from both sides were being transmitted across all channels. The entire Federation and all Ravager fleets were watching, seeing humans and moderate Ravagers defend each other, seeing extremists from both sides attacking the very people trying to create peace. High Counselor Bren watched from the Federation capital. He saw everything clearly now. The humans absorbing fire to protect others, the moderate Ravagers doing the same, and the extremists who valued hatred more than hope. He made a decision that would define his legacy. "All Federation forces, this is High Counselor Bren. Cease fire immediately. Anyone who continues attacking will be charged with treason. The humans are showing us what we should have been. Let us finally learn the lesson." The Federation extremist vessels hesitated. Some obeyed. Others continued firing, too committed to their hatred to stop. On the Ravager side, a similar drama played out. The moderate faction leader, an elder named Cress, transmitted with authority. "We are wanderers, not destroyers. We lost our way in desperation. These humans offer us a path back to who we were. I will not reject honor because I am afraid." Slowly, ship by ship, The extremists stood down, some because they were ordered, some because they saw human crews bleeding to protect people who had attacked them, some because they simply could not keep fighting against that kind of courage. The battle ended not with overwhelming force, but with overwhelming compassion. The diplomatic vessel docked with Admiral HFY's flagship. Medical teams rushed to treat the wounded from all species. Human medics worked on Ravagers. Ravager biological specialists helped stabilize human patients. Federation doctors treated everyone without distinction. Dr. Tanaka found Bennett in the medical bay. He was conscious but badly hurt. "You know, Captain, you're making a habit of getting torn up protecting others." Bennett managed a weak smile. "Someone's got to do it." Why do you keep risking everything?" "Because if people like me don't stand up for what's right, who will? And if we only protect our own kind, what makes us better than those who attacked us?" In the command center, leaders from all three sides met face to face. High Counselor Bren, Scarth and Kress representing the Ravagers, Admiral HFY for humanity. "We propose a formal alliance," Bren began, "not based on military necessity but on mutual support and cooperation. We have resources the Ravagers need. They have biological knowledge we lack. Humans have shown us that strength comes from compassion, not just capability." Kress spoke with visible emotion. "The Wanderers accept. We will settle the unclaimed systems. We will rebuild our civilization with honor. And we will never forget those who gave us a second chance." "There are details to work out," HFY added. "Treaties to write, systems to establish. But the foundation is simple. We help each other. We protect each other. We remember that every being, regardless of species, deserves dignity and chance." The alliance that formed that day was named the Compassionate Coalition, not for military might but for its founding principle. That caring for others, even at cost to yourself, creates something stronger than weapons or shields. 1 year later, Tilra stood in what had been the first Ravager settlement in unclaimed space. Thousands of wanderers lived here now, growing food sustainably, raising children in safety, rebuilding their culture. Dr. Tanaka worked at a joint research facility where all three species studied together. Captain Bennett trained integrated defense forces focused on protection rather than destruction. Admiral HFY coordinated humanitarian missions throughout the sector. Tilris watched Federation and Ravager children play together under human supervision. He saw species that had been enemies sharing meals and stories. He saw a future that should have been impossible. His report to the Federation Council had been simple. "We asked for help. We expected soldiers. We received teachers. The humans taught us that being advanced means nothing if we forget how to care. They showed us that the strongest weapon is the willingness to sacrifice for others. They proved that enemies are just friends who haven't talked yet." A young Ravager approached Tilris hesitantly. "Elder Tilris, my parent says you helped make the peace. Is that true?" "I helped a little, but the humans did most of it. They showed us all how to be better." "Why did they help us? We hurt them." Tilris knelt down to the child's level. "Because humans believe something wonderful and foolish and absolutely true. They believe everyone deserves a chance. Everyone deserves help. Everyone deserves dignity, even those who hurt them." The child considered this carefully. "That is not very logical." "No," Tilris agreed. "It is something better than logical. It is compassionate." Across the galaxy, other conflicts were beginning to end. Other species were requesting human mediators. The reputation had spread. Humans did not fight for conquest. They fought to protect. They did not seek advantage. They sought understanding. The Federation had wanted help and humanity brought shock. But the shock was not military might or advanced weapons. The shock was simple and profound. In a galaxy that had optimized for efficiency and forgotten kindness, humans reminded everyone what truly mattered, not being the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but being decent, being brave enough to care, being willing to stand between enemies and say there must be a better way. The compassionate coalition grew, not through force but through example. Species joined because they wanted to be part of something meaningful, because they saw what cooperation could build. And at the heart of it all were the humans, still primitive in many ways, still struggling with their own problems, still making mistakes, but always, always willing to help, always ready to protect, always believing that strangers were just family they had not met yet. The aliens had wanted help, humanity brought shock, and in that shock the galaxy found its soul.